promoting dialogue.
It's May Day in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink, and here are the top stories. Senegalese President Diomaye Faye vows to tackle economic challenges in wake of audit report on public finances.
As a government, our sole objective is to rebuild the nation. However, we are confronted with the challenges inherited upon taking power. Rest assured, we are doing our utmost to overcome these obstacles and restore stability.
Major political parties in the Gambia boycott national dialogue called by President Barrow in a quest to unite the country. At least 48 people, including pregnant women, died in illegal gold mine collapse in Western Mali.
A gold mine illegally operated by Chinese companies collapsed while several women were inside searching for gold. Trapped under the mud, at least 48 people have died, including pregnant women.
And the national dialogue on Niger's transitional roadmap resumes this Monday. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. This edition begins right here in Senegal, where President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has acknowledged the findings of the Court of Auditors' latest report, which was released last week. The 57-page document assesses the state of public finances from 2019 to 2024, uncovering major irregularities in the management of public funds during former President Macky Sall's administration. It also reveals that Senegal's public debt has surged to nearly 100%, surpassing the UMOA threshold of 70%. Returning from the 38th African Union Summit, President Faye reassured the nation that his government is fully committed to stabilizing the country's economic situation. Nadedetete reports.
According to President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, the audit provides crucial insights into the financial management of the past 6 years.
This report reveals the extent of misgovernance by previous administrations. It also highlights the lack of accountability to citizens, the concealment of certain loans and expenditures, and the country's worsening debt situation.
Despite the alarming findings, he affirmed that his administration is taking decisive steps to address the economic challenges outlined in the report.
As a government, our sole objective is to rebuild the nation. However, we are confronted with the challenges inherited upon taking power. Rest assured, we are doing our utmost to overcome these obstacles and restore stability.
The report published last week paints a bleak picture of public finances under Macky Sall's second term. However, allies of the former president have dismissed the findings, calling it a politically motivated attack.
Mustafa Jakite's report read to you by Nadedetete. In the neighboring Gambia, major political parties, including the opposition United Democratic Party, boycotted a dialogue called by President Adama Barrow during the weekend. The dialogue, which was convened ahead of the Gambia's independence anniversary, meant to focus on ways to unite and better the country. Some experts say the absence of these major political parties defeats the quest to unite the country. WADR's Banjul correspondent Sankule Janko reports.
The National Dialogue Day, second of its kind, was meant to bring together Gambians from different political divide, civil society and all relevant stakeholders with a view to uniting the country. This meeting was unique as it was convened ahead of the Gambia's Independence Diamond Jubilee set to be celebrated on Tuesday. In a statement on his behalf by the Minister of Public Service, Baboucarr Boye, President Barrow called on political parties for dialogue.
I invite all political parties and Gambians to join us for national development purposes. No individual or single party can stay in power forever. Working together we can ensure a smooth transition of government from generation to generation without any hostility, civil war, bloodshed, or military takeover.
The newly elected Secretary General and party leader of the People's Progressive Party, PPP, Usman Banyik Fall, applauded the initiative.
I am very, very pleased that the President is taking this initiative to put in all Gambian matters together besides political parties. I'm very pleased.
However, major political parties, including the leading opposition UDP, boycotted the national convergence. These parties, many of which participated in the inaugural national dialogue last year, have yet to provide reasons for their absence at this year's edition. Political analyst Seth Matijau weigh in on the absence of these key political players.
Well, as you can see, these are also maybe perhaps some of the challenges that we are confronting, because I remember that the first national dialogue, they were here. Certain political questions were asked, and part of those was the reintroduction of the new constitution and how this new constitution was going to be reintroduced. Perhaps these are the issues that some of these political parties, a reason why they did not.
As the Gambia prepares to celebrate 60 years of nationhood since gaining independence from Great Britain in 1965, experts stress the importance of dialogue and unity. However, they argue that the absence of these major political parties undermines the purpose of the meeting. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankula Janka reporting from Banjul.
Elsewhere, the president of the Democratic Party of Cote d'Ivoire, Tidjane Cham, held a rally during the weekend in Yopougon, a popular district of Abidjan. During his speech, the opposition leader addressed several issues, including the upcoming elections. Tidjane Cham also spoke about the ongoing debate surrounding his origins, following comments from Celestin Serudor, minister delegate to the Minister of Transport, who questions his Ivorian roots. Abdullahi Hassan reports.
Wearing T-shirts bearing Tidjane Cham's image and blowing vuvuzelas, supporters of Cote d'Ivoire's oldest political party turned out in large numbers at the call of their leader. The PDCI leader is actively preparing for the October presidential election and is calling for transparency at all levels of the electoral process.
This
time, the announced results must reflect the will of the Ivorian people, as expressed in the secrecy of the voting booth. Our votes, your votes, must be respected in October 2025. If the process is transparent and the referee plays fair, we will win. We must do everything possible to ensure a peaceful election, something we have yet to achieve in our history. Allowing as many Ivorians as possible to vote is essential for a credible election and meaningful political dialogue, and on this, we will not compromise.
Un dialogue politique digne de ce nom et nous ne céderons pas sur ces points.
The PDCI president also addressed the issue of his origins following recent remarks by Minister Celestin Serudor, which have sparked debate.
Whatever is said about who is truly Ivorian, I completed my final year of high school right here in Abidjan. I have always lived by a simple rule. I don't talk about others, I speak for myself. Those who went to school with me know who I am. As you are often reminded, I was forced into exile by a coup d'etat. I spent 23 years abroad. But as I've said before, I could always afford a Paris-Abidjan ticket. I was simply waiting for the right moment. The moment when my people and I could come together to transform this country. The moment has arrived, and today I stand before you.
Tidjane Cham urged his supporters to remain mobilized for the party's victory in the October 2025 presidential election.
Abidjan correspondent Albin Aded's report, voiced by Abdullahi Hassan.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now, Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama has stated that his administration has no immediate plans to extend Ghana's $3 billion extended credit facility with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Speaking in an interview with Bloomberg Television at the Munich Security Conference, President Mahama clarified that while future extensions remain an option, his administration is thus committed to the current program but left room for future adjustments if necessary. The ECF, approved in May 2023, aims to stabilize Ghana's economy over 3 years. Discussions with the IMF centered on tax reforms, debt management, and fiscal discipline. Have a listen to President John Mahama.
We've not talked about an extension of the program. We are determined to continue with this program. I think that it means that we must be more prudent in our handling of our finances. We must also look on the expenditure side and see how we can cut waste and also shift resources to more priority programs. And so it's a whole basket that we're looking at. We also have the issue of the debt restructuring and the humps that have been created. This year we have to pay in excess of 15 billion on the domestic debt exchange. So what we've done is to reactivate the sinking fund and put more resources into it to take care of the repayments that have to be made this year. But all in all, we have a cordial relation with the IMF. The next review, which will be the fourth review, is due in April.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama speaking. Crossing over to the Central Sahel region, where at least 48 people have died after an illegal gold mine collapsed in western Mali. Several women were trapped beneath the rubble while searching for gold fragments. This is the second deadliest mining disaster in recent years, following a similar collapse over a year ago in Kangbaba near the capital, Bamako. Christopher Aticho reports.
The tragedy occurred over the weekend in Bilalkoto in the Kanieba region of western Mali. The victims were mostly women trying to extract gold from an illegally operated site run by Chinese companies when the ground suddenly gave way, burying them alive. Aliou Diallo, president of Wazaton, an association fighting illegal mining in Kanieba, explains.
A gold mine illegally operated by Chinese companies collapsed while several women were inside searching for gold. Trapped under the mud, at least 48 people have died, including pregnant women. Some survivors have been rescued, but concerns remain that more victims may still be buried. Such efforts are ongoing to recover anyone still trapped underground.
This part of Mali, rich in natural resources, frequently experiences mine collapses. Diallo has blamed Chinese companies for unsafe mining practices and criticized authorities for their inaction.
Chinese companies are responsible for these reckless practices. They dig deep holes but fail to close them, leading to accidents where animals and even children fall in. We have repeatedly called on the authorities to take action, but our warnings have been ignored.
Just over a year ago, a mine collapse in Kangaba claimed more than 70 lives. More recently, in January, at least 10 women were killed in a similar tragedy in the same area.
That's Bamako correspondent Aliou Cham's report voiced by Eche Atisu. In neighboring Niger, the national dialogue resumes this Monday, having begun on Saturday and set to conclude on Wednesday. The discussions aim to determine the duration of the transition following the July 2023 coup led by General Abdurrahman Chiani. Major decisions are expected. Imo Edit has the details.
A total of 716 participants from various socio-professional backgrounds are taking part in the dialogue launched by General Abdurrahman Chiani. Interior and Security Minister General Mohamed Toumba opened the session.
Lors de votre message à la nation,
in your address to the nation on August 2, 2023, you solemnly expressed your commitment to creating the necessary conditions for a nationwide dialogue. This initiative aims to establish a new governance framework that aligns with our social, economic, and cultural realities while reflecting the aspirations of our people,
ainsi que les aspirations profondes de nos populations.
The discussions mark a critical turning point in Niger's socio-political landscape, addressing key national concerns and setting the stage for major decisions, says Dr. Mahmoudou Haruna Jingari, president of the National Commission overseeing the dialogue.
The success of these discussions depends on our collective commitment, demonstrated through sincerity, diligence, and patriotism. We must propose concrete actions and clear recommendations supported by monitoring and evaluation mechanisms for our future governance. It is crucial to learn from the 1991 Sovereign National Conference to avoid repeating past mistakes.
Beyond Nigerians, the participation of countries from the Alliance of Sahel State AES is also welcomed, according to the head of state.
I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all our fellow citizens, our brothers from the AES Confederation and across Africa, and everyone who has mobilized in support of our cause. This declaration to unity and national rebuilding is deeply appreciated. I want them to know they all deserve a place in the discussions that begin today in Niamey.
The dialogue, concluding on Wednesday, is expected to produce a transition roadmap for the country.
Niamey correspondent Mutala Zuberu's report, voiced by Imo Edit. U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to suspend development aid to poorer nations is raising alarm in countries that relied on American assistance. In Burkina Faso, where a severe humanitarian crisis has displaced over 1 million people, the move is causing deep concern. With resources already stretched thin, many fear the impact could be devastating. However, the country's Minister of Humanitarian Action is looking into mitigating this development. You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Senegalese President Diomaye Faye vows to tackle economic challenges in wake of audit report on public finances. Major political parties in the Gambia boycott national dialogue called by President Barrow in a quest to unite the country. At least 48 people, including pregnant women, died in illegal gold mine collapse in western Mali. Still ahead in the news, African Union assures mediation efforts to address ongoing conflicts and security threats on the continent. We also have a press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. As a reminder, we are streaming live on YouTube at WADR News and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Liberian President Joseph Boakai has stressed the urgent need for reparations as a means to address the historical injustices of slavery, colonialism, and systemic racism. His remarks resonated with the summit's 2025 theme, Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations, as he outlined Liberia's unique position and commitment to this cause. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Ibrahim Parker reports.
In what was his inaugural address as Liberia's president at the African Union, Boakai highlighted the nation's historical ties to the legacy of slavery, noting that approximately 5% of Liberia's population comprises descendants of freed slaves. According to President Boakai, reparations are a crucial part of overcoming this brutal and traumatic experience, fostering healing and reconciliation, and building trust within Africa and the global African community. The Liberian leader also commended the AU for its support of Liberia's diplomatic processes, particularly during the 2023 elections, which saw the deployment of over 60 observers to ensure transparency. He expressed gratitude for the UN's endorsement of Liberia's candidacy for a non-permanent seat on the UN Security Council for the 2026-2027, seeking continued support to amplify Africa's voice on critical issues such as peace, security, women, youth, and development. For Newslink for West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Abraham Parker reporting from Monrovia.
Talking about the African Union Summit, the Pan-African Institution has assured mediation efforts to address ongoing conflicts and existential security threats across the continent. While the Union celebrates new leadership, regional and country-specific challenges from terrorism to electoral disputes and unconstitutional changes of government are many of the issues it has to resolve as to threaten regional stability. Addressing a press conference in Addis Ababa, the AU Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Banko Adeboye underscored the role of dialogue and a non-connected approach to conflicts.
What is critical in all these conflict areas in Africa is that we do not see a military solution. The only sustainable way to peace is ceasefire that is comprehensive, inclusive, immediate, and permanent. The Lake Chad Basin also remains concerning, but we really commend the gallantry, the professionalism of the Multinational Joint Task Force under the umbrella of the Lake Chad Basin Commission. But our concern in West Africa is basically the spectra of unconstitutional changes of government, terrorism, and violent extremism. It is important for us collectively as the African Union to continue to promote robust response, but at the same time trying to strengthen and deepen democracy, and at the same time use our sustainable collective security approach to find a solution. So we call on the countries that have been suspended. We continue to promote political transition that is viable. I reported just at the Assembly that for the first time in the history of the African Union, we observe a referendum in the Gabonese Republic. The effort is to make sure that Gabon's transition is sustainable, using the African Union UNDP-led African Facility to support inclusive transitions in Africa.
Banko Adeboyiga is the AU Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's now travel to the Nigerian capital, Abuja, where Usman Umar is on standby with the press review.
We begin today with the Daily Trust newspaper, which is leading with this story. 2025 budget. How U.S. aid withdrawal triggered 300 billion naira allocation for drugs, others, with a single rider as Independent National Electoral Commission, that is INEC, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, that is EFCC, military, others get 400 billion naira extra. Of course, this is a follow-up to the closure of USAID by the American government and, of course, another proposal for an adjustment to the 2025 budget by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which, of course, reflects some additional funding support from the federal government to some of the agencies and programs that were initially expected to be funded from the aid that usually comes from USAID. Of course, there are a couple of other stories. Take a look at the below the masthead of the Daily Trust newspaper. Airstrike kills 7 Katsina villagers. Bandits gun down 3 security men. Of course, another story. Nigeria to AU. Prevent mercenaries incursion into Africa. And finally, from the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, United States set to deport 85 Nigerians. These are some of the stories. But quickly, federal government weighs options as contract sum hits 532 billion naira for Abuja runway project. We take a look at the Matrix newspaper, and it's leading with this story. How Nigeria can benefit from U.S. trade tariff war. This is coming from the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, that is CPPE. And there are a couple of other stories. Above the masthead of the Matrix, you have SERAP, that is Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, charges Central Bank of Nigeria to reverse ATM transactions fee hike within 48 hours. And finally, before we go, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. Despite 7.2 trillion naira subsidies, power sector inefficiencies take toll on consumers. The detail of this is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. 2027, Tinubu gets more northern backing as Labour Party spars over Igbo presidency. And that's the much we can take on this segment of the press review as I hand you back to the studios.
Thank you, Usma Umar, for the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Well, we take you back to the Gambia, where major political parties, including the opposition United Democratic Party, boycotted a dialogue called by President Adama Barrow during the weekend. Some experts say the absence of these major political parties defeats the quest to unite the country. Our guest this afternoon is Seth Matijo, a political analyst who lectures political science at the University of the Gambia. He speaks with our Banjul correspondent, Sankule Janko.
This is a second dialogue, national dialogue, ahead of the independence. But interestingly, we've seen that the major political parties have refused to honor. Their seats are empty. How much of an impact do you think this will have on the overall view, which is to bring people together? And the president said he has called on political parties to come for a dialogue, but they are not here.
Well, as you can see, these are also maybe perhaps some of the challenges that we are confronting. But because I remember that the first national dialogue, they were here. I facilitated certain groups, and more political parties were there, and certain political questions were asked and basically raised, and part of those was the reintroduction of the new constitution and how this new constitution was going to be introduced. Perhaps these are the issues that some of these political parties see as perhaps the reason why they did not offer. But I'm not sure whether they refused or what happened. But when we talk about national dialogue, it doesn't matter. It's important for who's organizing or not. It's important for people to come out, no matter what your disagreements are. It's supposed to be an opportunity for people to express them and say that. Like, we're all here. It's not that we're happy 100% in terms of the way that the country is working, but at least this is an opportunity to come and register, our thoughts, our feelings, so that whatever the outcome is, it could be taken next. But of course, whether this one or not, what is important is that for political leaders, and for me, I've always been calling that the current challenge within this country, especially when it comes to the constitution and all that, it means that political leaders must think beyond themselves and start thinking about the people. And I think today my conversation is going to be on that, in terms of the self-reliance that we need to think about. There's supposed to be democratic self-reliance. Can we rely on ourselves? Can we rely on our political leaders to make the right decisions for us? So these are the conversations that as ordinary citizens we need to raise and bring forward.
Not having these political major players here, do you think that will have an impact on the aims and objectives of this dialogue? Well,
perhaps it might, but eventually, maybe perhaps some of the things that they will want to be said must be said here, and so. We just hope that this will not be the end, that they will look at it more at a national level and then start taking it from that level. But I also not sure the ins and outs, so I'm not sure whether they refuse or they're not invited.
They've been invited. Yes, I've been confirmed that they've been invited.
So I think those are things that we need to pick up, and then they need to be the leaders of this country. And so far what they're showing is not that kind of leadership.
Said Mate Joel is a political science lecturer at the University of the Gambia. Up next is Sports with Sankule Janko.
Hello out there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The Confederation of African Football CAF has reportedly delayed the official publication of the final candidate list for its upcoming executive committee elections. This comes after potential candidates filed appeals against the football governing body for their disqualifications at the Court of Arbitration for Sports. The elections, which are scheduled for next month in Egypt, are now uncertain as CAF delayed the proceedings. Key among the candidates who filed an appeal include former Cameroon captain Samuel Eto'o, who filed an appeal with the Court of Arbitration for Sports, CAS, after being disqualified from contesting in the upcoming CAF Executive Committee elections. The president of the Cameroon Football Federation, Fecafoot Eto'o, officially lodged his complaint with CAS on seeking to overturn the CAF's decision to bar him from standing in next month's elections, according to media reports. CAF reportedly disqualified Eto'o, citing violations of ethical standards, particularly his partnership with betting company 1xBet, and a criminal record stemming from a 22-month suspended prison sentence for tax fraud in Spain in 2022. Meanwhile, two other high-profile possible candidates, namely Jean Blaise Mayolas of Congo and Macklin Leswiti of Botswana, have also filed appeals with CAS after being excluded from the elections. Recall, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, CAS, had initially sent a letter to the Confederation of African Football, CAF, requesting that Samuel Eto'o's application for a position on the CAF Executive Committee be re-examined after it was rejected last December, it has been reported. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And that's all we have for you on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek, Kodu Njai, and Umud Danyago for the technical support. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM.